friends. Today I'm painting this little wreath that I did in a short, and you all asked if I would do a tutorial on it, so I'm going to definitely do that for you. It had some greens, some yellows and oranges and golds, really pretty. I think very much representative of fall and Thanksgiving and that holiday. And so let's just go through our supplies real quick. I will most likely be using my 8 Princeton round brush. I also keep my 6 long round just handy because it does have the ability to have a little bit more detail. So I have enjoyed having that close by. I do have my Meeden just flat wash brush here, just in case. Let's see here. I've got my Artisto paper, and this is, as you know, I love my journals. So beautiful. They just redid the cover, by the way. 140-pound cold press. But today I'm going to be using the little bit larger sheet because I'm making some things for gifts and so forth. So this is their 9x12, same great quality, especially for students. And I have tried a lot of student papers, so this one's really great. It has a beautiful texture and does pretty well with water. The colors are vibrant on it. It's quite stiff and thick, so I really like these. So today I'm using that bigger sheet. I've got my MeiLang palette that I'm using by Paul Rubens, which you know I absolutely love Paul Rubens. Such a great beginner kit because it does give you all these beautiful mixes and colors. So for the beginner, you don't have to stress out about having some different variations of colors because it's all just right there done for you. And they've got some really beautiful pinks and purples and blues. And then of course, make sure you have your 2 containers, 2 wells. You want to make sure you have your wash water and your rinse water, really important for watercolors. I love this Meeden ceramic dish. It won't dump over, and it's just quality. I love it. And then lastly, my palette here. This is my Meeden palette. I've really been liking. Has these giant wash. Whoops, see, you can hear that. How solid and nice that is. But I love it because it has the big wash wells in it. So what I did is I just took a glass bowl out of my kitchen and I just drew a circle here to give me kind of the shape of my wreath. And then the colors that I'm going to be using, let me grab a swatch sheet. Always keep some extra cut up sheets of watercolor paper, and those can be, you can use any inexpensive paper. This is just to kind of get a color palette going. So today I'm going to be using some of the yellow ochre. There we go. And you can even practice, you know, here's your dark value, adding some water. You've got a little less value color and then more water, and you've got a really light value of that yellow ochre. And making sure that you're including all of those in your painting for some really kind of a level up, more skill in your paintings. So I'm going to use that color. I'm probably going to use, you know, choose a red that you like. This red I've got here is a little bit warmer, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. This one in the MeiLang palette is called, let me tell you, I believe that one's the madder red. So it's a little bit warmer. Again, go in. There's your mid-level value and your light value. And do your best to try and add in all those values. I will use my favorite green, which is olive green. There's our mid value. And our light value, which, boy, mine's really light. Let's darken that a tiny bit. There you go. And let's see, what other color might I use? I might use a touch of brown, which is sienna. And I love that sienna color because it has a bit of brightness and oranginess in it. Now, guys, these have a lot of water in them. That is not really how you lay down a wash, so it's just I'm trying to get some colors here. So those will be basically my colors that I'm using. I'll mix them a little bit together. I might even add some sap green, which is a little bit cooler green, and my light value. And there you go. That'll basically be my colors. I'll probably throw in a dark brown for some twigs, and it's very grounding for all these beautiful colors. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure if you draw out your wreath, I draw mine a little bit darker so you can see them, but make sure you draw them lighter, and then you can always, after you draw them, just go over, roll over with one of these little kneaded erasers, and it will lighten it up, and you're not having to scrub with an eraser because that can damage the texture on your paper. Okay, so what I'm going to start with first, I think, is I'm going to go in with, on my palette, let me take a peek here. I want to see if you can see my palette here. Yes, you can. Okay, perfect. So that way you can watch me mixing some of the colors. So here I've got a little bit of that yellow ochre, and I might throw in a tiny bit of brown. And maybe even, if you really want to get fancy, if you've got the MeiLang 48 palette, it's got the same colors as your smaller MeiLang, but I love their metallics here. So I'll probably throw in a little bit of that. You don't have to. If you don't have these, no worries. Just mix that in. And you're going to mix the ratio. So we always want to start lightest value to darkest so we can kind of layer. And I'm going to start with, hold on, there we go. I am going to start with my light gold yellow ochre value. So I'm going to just go up here and create this little leaf here. As you can see, that is a really light value, okay? That's how I want it because it's our first layer. We can always go in and darken. And then maybe another one right here. So I'm going to point, start pressing, opening up the belly, come to a point, and then just the tip of my brush, creating some of the edges of that leaf. The other thing I want to do is I want to maybe just touch in the tiniest bit with some of that green while it's wet. Although keep in mind, we're going to go over this with some other colors. So don't worry too much about that. I didn't put it on my sheet here, but I may add a tiny bit of orange or maybe just use that sienna. And then let's go over here, maybe create a leaf here, point, press, point. There we go. Like that. Just touching in while that's still wet. And let's do a couple up here. So point, press, opening up the belly of that brush. So tip of the brush and then opening up the belly. Tip, open up, pressure, and then come to the tip again. Now again, these are pretty light values because we can build color here. Maybe do a few more right here. Point, press, point, press, There you go. Just plain, kind of adding them in wherever you feel. Maybe one here, point press. And you can try to somewhat, you know, create different sizes so they're not all the same size, and we'll add in different sizes as we go too. Point, let me pick up some paint here. Uh-oh. That's okay, don't worry. We're just gonna pick that up. There you go. As long as it's wet, you can normally pick it up. Sometimes it might be a little staining. Point, press. So that leaf is a tiny bit smaller, which is what I was trying to do. There we go. Yeah, typically you can pick up these little drops that you might get on your paper like me, unless it's a staining color like a red or a blue or a hot pink. And then let's go in, and how about if we use some of our green? So I've got a mix here, which is kind of my go-to green. It's a mix of sap green and olive green, and it's about 50-50 paint and water. And I'm going to go in and start laying down a little bit smaller leaves. So point, press, like that. Point, press, open up that brush, and then bring it up again. And just start laying these down. Point, press, point, press. Just keep adding them in. Point, press, point, press. So that one I laid down over the first leaf, which is perfectly fine. Point, press, point, press. There we go. And now I think I'll go in with a little bit of cad yellow to that gold, just to give a little different hue. And let's go in and add point, press, a few of those, point, press. There we go. Point, press. I'm varying the size of my leaves. And then I want to pick up that really fun red, which is a little bit deeper red. And if you think you have too much paint, just tap in. Look at all that. That would have been a puddle on my painting. So I'm glad I did that. And let's go in and start adding in some more leaves. Point, press, and you can go over whatever leaves might be there. Kind of filling that in. Point, press. There we go, kind of letting them all mix together. That's what is so pretty. Me. Take off my jacket here, getting a little bit warm. And making sure to also vary the value. So value in your paint, meaning more pigment than water. So you get some interesting lights and darks. And I'm going to go over here, point, press, point, press, point, press. There we go. And going to use my green here. Maybe just add in a tiny bit of that brown. And add in some little twigs. Coming out here and there. Just for some interest. And I'm just using the tip of my brush, like that, maybe even one hanging down. But if you do that on one side, you want to make sure you do it on the other so it doesn't look lopsided. This is where brush strokes come in really handy because you want to make sure you know how to make those. And then using the brown, let's add a little bit more brown. I like my brown in my wreaths to be quite dark, so I'm using a Van Dyke brown in the MeiLiang. And I'm going to go in and just add maybe a few little twigs here, like that, using the tip of my brush and letting it kind of wiggle. Very lightly with the tip of my brush. And now see how we've got a lot of the same values. So now we want to start bringing in a little darker value. Tap off on the side. If you think you have too much, just tap it off on your paper. And now we can start going in and adding some more darker value leaves. So point, press, point. Go over here, point, press, point, press, point, press, point, press. There we go. Point, press. So those darker ones are going to kind of pop out. I think I'll go in and add just a few brownish reddish leaves. Tap off to get rid of some of that excess. Point, press. Now that isn't as dark a value as I would like. Point, press, point, press, point, press, point, press. So you are going over some of the leaves that are already there. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow gold and just add that in a few places. Point, press, like that. Get a little bit more of that, a little bit more of the cad yellow. Maybe go over that a bit, some of that glazing. So I am going over some of those that are in there, tapping in with maybe a little bit of these other colors, whether it's reds or browns. And I'm just going to keep building. Point, press, point, press, make kind of a bigger leaf here. There we go, maybe one over here, point, press. I'm going to go over that one, make it a little bit bigger. And then I feel like because we've got these yellows, we need one more of those yellows maybe over here. So how about if we do one right here, point, press. Just so that yellow doesn't look too lopsided. And there we go. I'm going to go into my green again. So you're just switching back and forth. And as you're building, you can start adding in some more darker values, more pigment than paint. And some of these are just dabs. They make great leaves. So I'm just dabbing my brush like that. And then I'm going to go in with maybe some berries, using that dark red. And And just adding those in here and there. Kind of drawing your eye around. Might go in and add a little bit to that. Let that kind of blend. That one was a little dry, so I'm going to help it with a damp brush there. There we go. And I feel like we could use a little bit more of the greenish type of pine, maybe over here. So let's just add in a few over here. Just kind of sticking out here and there. Maybe a little bit here. Building those layers. And then let's go in, I'm going to go in with a darker value of that brown. I really want to get a deep brown and go in and add some more of these twigs. I always feel like adding brown to some of these florals just makes such a difference. Just using the tip of my brush, drawing in a few of those. Like that. And it really kind of gives it some earthiness. And then I'm going to add some water to that so I have a lighter value, and I'm going to go in and maybe we can even add a mix of that red, brown, and green for some of these leaves. Look how pretty. This is one of the things I really enjoy about watercolors. I love mixing colors on my palette. I mean, on my paper. I think that's really fun. In other words, I'm picking up all the colors, but then I'm letting them mix on my paper. So I'm not mixing them in my palette. I'm just dabbing into them and then letting them mix on my paper. I'm going to go in with a few bigger ones here. Make it a little bit thicker, like that. Maybe some of these yellows. And again, I'm really layering here. There we go. Feel like this might need a little something over here, so I'll mix some of those colors. Point, press. Yeah, that is better. Creating some fullness. More of those dabs. Then I can go in to those with maybe some red or brown and let them kind of mix, since those are wet. I think that's such a pretty effect. And then maybe just a few more berries here and there. Just to keep your eye moving around the page. Like that. Kind of tucking them in here and there. And there we go. I think that's really pretty. I love this color palette. Got a lot of different shades. and reds and blues and browns, and they're all kind of mixing just beautifully together. You can really come in towards the middle as much as you want. Let's make one flower here. Let's go in. Want a little darker value. Point, press. Yeah, like that. So I almost feel like I could stop about now. Pick up some of that yellow. And as you saw, I'm picking up a darker concentration of these colors to add in. Really brightens it up, and it makes it feel like you've got a lot of point press. Leaves underneath in the background. There we go. And then I might go into those and just add in a tiny bit of red and let that mingle a little bit. And you could stop anytime. You don't have to keep going like I am. Maybe a little bit of a brown leaf there. Just dabbing, building more and more layers. And there you go. I'm pretty happy with that. Of course, stop when feels right to you. You may want something that's a little bit more minimalistic, and that's fine. So I think I will stop right there. Oh, you know what? This looks a little upside. Let's just add one more over here, so it kind of evens out. There we go. Okay. I hope you give this a try. Just have fun. The brush strokes I used were those fun little dabs for small leaves where you just are doing things like this. And then I also used the C stroke, point, press to widen out that belly of your brush, come down, point, press, and end the other side of the leaf a little bit shorter. And that makes a really easy leaf for you. Okay, I also did some of the little pine, which is just using the tip of my brush. Very light pressure. That's a great brush stroke to practice, is that light pressure. And I think I'm about done. You could always add in some, oops, I just dripped water there. You could always add in some, let's see, little splatters, but I think we've got quite a bit in here, but so you know what it looks like. And when you do splatters, make sure you've got quite a bit of water on there, because otherwise it's hard to get it to drip. So, you know, those are kind of yours. If you want to do splatters, wash with your brush, bring into a point, and rest on its side. And there you go. I hope you guys have fun with that. It was a lot of fun for me. I could paint wreaths, honestly, all day long. I just love painting them. I think you can do them for all seasons. And I will list all my supplies down below. And I think we're about done. Thanks so much, everybody. And have fun with that one. Get unique, add your colors, and keep playing. Bye-bye.